down that two-lane road. Lord, we got crap out of control. We wasn't drinking and smoking and snorting and talking like some mothers on it all night long. We'll take some moonshine, grab a six-pack and head for the hills. We'll take some moonshine, need some real man's dirty grill. The last time I had a right night, now baby, I sold my soul to you and drank some moonshine. Yeah, yeah. Now tonight we'll stumble down to the river bar, try to pick us up some Cajun queens. A few cases later, I'd be telling you what, they be learning things they ain't never seen. We'll get some moonshine, get some real man's dirty grill. The last time I had a right night, now baby, I sold my soul to you and drank some moonshine. It's got you in a dress now, baby. Don't you know? It's got you in a dress now, baby. I'm in control. It's got you in a dress now, baby. Don't you know? In a dress now, baby. 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 You wanna get out? You wanna get out? You wanna get out? Drink some moonshine, grab a six-pack and head for the hills. We'll get some moonshine, get some real man's dirty grill. The last time I had a right night, now baby, I sold my soul to you and drank some moonshine. Yeah, yeah. Moonshine. Yeah, yeah. Hello, everybody. Tonight, I'm going to start off a new series of people from my hometown that I grew up with, and we're going to interview Dennis Duncan on the 30th year anniversary of the release of Sisters Whiskey's Liquor and Poker. And they got signed off the Sunset Strip on July 13th, 1993. So I have with me today Dennis, the lead vocalist, and Rich FLorio, the bass player of the group. So here they come. We'll do it that way. Hello, everybody, and I'd like to thank everybody for coming by. We got Baby Ice and Kenneth and Roscoe and the Hard Rock and Roll Sports Show. And Dennis was a year older in high school than me, and he played basketball with my brother. So that's kind of how I knew him. And we had a hoop up in our little community, and he'd come up there and play basketball and just running around with all the same friends as my brother. So that's kind of how I knew Dennis growing up. And after he graduated, Dennis, we're going to start off, and you can tell him after you left Henderson what happened and how did you end up playing Sunset Strip in a band. Can't hear you. Hold on. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's because I muted you.
Oh, okay.
I'm muted.
It's not the first time I've been muted. Trust me. Um, no, I after high school I went to Western for a year, and then I came back and went out on the hill for a semester, and then I decided I wanted to go to a music school, so I went to Florida State University for a couple of semesters and stayed down there and played in a couple bands. I was playing drums at the time and singing, and so after a couple of years, actually after about 2 years in Florida, I ended up going. My brother called me and asked me, or he said he was in the Marine Corps and he was just getting out of officer candidate school. And he said, "Hey, I know you've been wanting to go to California. Do you want to go?" He's like, "I'm getting transferred out there to do my time at Camp Pendleton." He's like, "You can stay with me. You can go out the same time I do." So I went. My brother and I. Do you remember that yellow Chevette, Richie, that I had? I drove. My grandma gave me a '76 yellow Chevette. I drove that thing from Tallahassee, Florida, back up to Henderson, Kentucky. Spent Christmas there, and then right at the day after Christmas, my brother and I left, and there were some major snowstorms going across the U.S. And I didn't even have the heater on that Chevette. It only came out in one spot, and it came out over top of your foot on the gas pedal. And then it didn't have a stereo in it, and I had a boom box next to me, right? And the brakes were bad on this thing. And so when I wanted to slow down and stop, I would have to pull up on the emergency brake to slow down, you know? And my brother was so paranoid about it. We stopped in just outside of Memphis, and he said, and I had $600 to my name. I'd just gotten a Pell Grant from somewhere. I can't remember where it was. And I took that money and I'm like, all right, well, I got $600. I sold my drums that I had, and I don't know, I had maybe close to $1,000. And whenever we went to that Midas brakes place, they said, "Hey man, you shouldn't be driving this thing. This thing's it's dangerous. The brakes are out. You know, they're bad." And my brother said, "Dude, you got to put new brakes on this thing." And I can't remember back then, maybe $300 or something. I was like, "Dude, I'm not spending half of my money putting brakes on this thing." I said, "You just drive in front of me, and if I crash, my brakes go out, just slow down, and then I'll run into you, you know." But we got out there. My brother and I got out to California New Year's Eve, 1989. The very next day was 1990, and we actually stayed with a this girl named Terry Willoughby. She grew up in Henderson too, and we went. My brother was really good friends with her. We went to her house New Year's Eve, 1989. The next day was 1990. That's how I got there.
So then, how did you end up with a band on Sunset Strip?
Um, I was going out for auditions. I played in another band out there called Death and Taxes, and then it was auditioning for different bands. And back then, you know, of course, there wasn't any internet, and the way people connected musically was they would run ads in this thing called the Music Connection or Recycler. What else? What other magazines were out there? Rich, Music Connection, Recycler, Billboard.
I mean, Music Connection was the main one. I don't remember. If we were looking for another musician, it was always the Music Connection.
Okay, yeah. So I was running ads and auditioning, and I joined one band, and then I forgot how we actually connected. Were you guys running an ad, or was I running an
No,
ad?
I think what I remember was because the guitar player Dominic Gentili, he was he was looking for a whole band, and he had myself, the drummer Andrew, and another guitar player Jack, and we were just sitting around, kind of talking about a band and maybe jamming a little bit, but we didn't have that last piece of the puzzle. So went on to he went into Music Connection and found you under songwriters. I remember that.
Okay.
So it wasn't really about singing. It said songwriters, and then he called you, and then he came down to my apartment because Dominic, the guitar player, was the building manager of the building that we all lived in, and he said, "Come take a walk with me. I'm gonna go check out this singer songwriter and that's how we met Dennis.
Yeah. Back then, a lot of the musicians would, congregate in these different apartment complexes. They'll be 4, 5, 6 stories high, and it wasn't uncommon for the place to be full of musicians because where Richie and those guys were living at the time was maybe a block or 2, 3 blocks from MIT, which is Musicians Institute of Technology. So there was a lot of musicians coming in and going to that school. So in that general area there, tons of musicians, and I lived maybe 6 or 8 blocks from where they were at the time.
So y'all ended up living in a 1-bedroom apartment, all in the whole band did in a group, or?
Yep, Richie and I were trying to put the pieces together before we came live here on. But I rented a little studio apartment not far from where they were. And Rich, if you want to tell that funny story, you can.
I don't know how funny it is, but we before Dennis moved in with us, it was me and Ange. I don't know if Ange is watching, but I love you, Ange. I don't know how many people are watching this. Maybe 2.
Yeah. All right.
Well, anyway, if Ange is watching, he knows I love him. Anyway, so it was me and Ange, and Bob, and we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in Hollywood, right at the corner of Sycamore and Hollywood Boulevard. And that was the same building that the guitar player managed, him and his girlfriend Felicia. So, and Jack lived in the building too. And so when we started putting all these pieces of the puzzle together, and Dennis became the singer of the band, at some point we just kept getting more roommates. We had like somebody sleeping on the couch. We had instead of Bob in the bedroom, there was 2 girls living in the bedroom. I don't even know how it happened. There was multiple people living in this really small 1-bedroom apartment. And then at some point, Dennis was like, I want to move in too. And we were like, all right, if you can find a spot, there's like, remember there was a big fat chick sleeping on the couch, and it was like, I don't know, just like there was tons of people living in this little apartment. Anyway, we had a semi-big closet. It was like enough to walk into at least. And then Dennis said, well, I'll just put my blanket and pillow in his closet and sleep in there. It was like more about where he was going to sleep as opposed to he didn't actually live in there. He was just sleeping there, so, because we were like hanging out and drinking all night, and then he'd go to sleep in the closet. So, so the number of the apartment was 114, and we called Dennis's little hovel 114 and a half.
Yeah. And man, that was crazy times. I remember there was a time there where because I remember, let's see, Ange moved out. Ange moved into the front apartment. Remember that? And then
I know, but that was after we moved upstairs, right? Yeah, because Ange was still living with us when we got signed. Yeah, right?
No.
When his girlfriend moved out. Yeah,
but and maybe I'm wrong here, but it seems like to me that it was me, you, Angie, not Ange. Remember Angie?
Right, that's what I mean. Angie, yeah.
Yeah, Angie, and then the other girl, the brunette girl.
Rachel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was 4 of us, and sometimes 5 living in a 1-bedroom apartment. Rachel and Angie slept in the
right, but Angie used to have other friends come live with us just to help out with the rent.
Yeah.
Now and then, But then that's when once Ange moved out, you moved your bed to that like front. You had a bed in that front area by the kitchen.
Yeah. I had a futon. I mean, like a fold-out couch thing.
Yeah, it was something.
So I moved up, man.
Your status.
I was in the presence of I I was in the Beverly Hills as far as I was concerned. No, they do you remember that time we couldn't afford to pay the rent or the electricity, and we used to run an extension cord out of the living room into the management's office, and we'd have a strip, like a power strip, and we would plug lights and the TV and stuff into it. Remember that?
Yeah. I mean, I also remember, and this was also in Angie's day too, when Angie was living with us. We'd get the phone put on. We'd wait as long as we could before they would keep sending us bills, and we would just ignore them. And then they would shut it off. We'd pick up the phone. This is when there was like a wall-mounted phone or whatever. And then somebody else would go down there and put it in their name.
Yeah.
And then we just do the same thing over until we had no more phone, or until Angie moved in and she started paying the bill. You know what I mean? Until there was like an adult present.
Yeah, Angie was normal. She had a job. I don't even remember where she worked, but she was cool.
So after y'all got together, y'all start writing music and stuff immediately and come up with the band name, or did it just kind of
I think the band name was like from the get-go. Dominic Tyler, he had that name from the start. There was no like, we never like were not Sister Whiskey. We were always Sister Whiskey. It was just like when I moved to LA, he had said, "Oh, I got this band, Sister Whiskey," but it was just him and the guitar player, and that was it. So then when me and Ange moved down, we put it all together, and then Dennis came. But we were always Sister Whiskey. But I think, right? We started as soon as Dennis got in a band. We got into a studio. We started writing immediately.
Yeah,
I remember this recently, that we had a few rehearsals in Hollywood. There was like a studio. We went and rehearsed, and then after that we went to the Farmer John's place down in
downtown LA.
Yeah, well, what was the name of it?
I don't remember, but it was sketchy.
Remember, it was like as you're driving there, they had the Farmer John's slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
And the smell was like rancid meat, and all you smelled was like death.
Yeah, it was bad. I remember that.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that rehearsal studio we rehearsed at was maybe right off on Lancashire somewhere, just over in North Hollywood there, maybe.
No, absolutely not. No, the one that we rehearsed in was in Hollywood, down off of like, Melrose or something. But we only rehearsed there like once or twice. Okay. And then, because I remember this because Ange had to leave his drums there, and we were like, we're going to leave our drums here. But everybody did that. It was like you left your drums, you packed them up, and you put them in like a little cubby hole. And then when you came back, you just brought them back out again. We were like, oh, is somebody going to steal them? But we only did that like once or twice, or maybe a few times. And then we went to that place downtown.
Okay. I remember that place downtown being real dark and dreary and sketchy and all that.
What the funniest part of that was, that we would go there all in the same car. And this was like, remember Jack's little, so we were all piled into Jack's little piece of shit car with our gear and our guitars and everything. I mean, it was a lockout, so we had our equipment in there, but we would all just be packed into Jack's car. And
wasn't that like it was an orange Honda Tercel or something, wasn't it?
Something, yeah. And then I remember this too. That remember Bob?
Yeah.
Bob was with it. Bob was riding his motorcycle because he would like come with us sometimes. So he would be riding his motorcycle in front of us, and I just thought like, wow, we just, we were lucky to have Jack in his car. So it was like,
yeah,
he was the only one that had a car. Well, I think you had a car too back then, no?
You had a car. I had a what did I have? I think I had a blue Honda Accord. Maybe?
Honda Accord, yeah. But we started riding right away. We were always, I mean, rehearsal was pretty frequent well, every day. I don't know. Was it?
No, we were rehearsing every day, man, and we were.
Yeah.
Rich had ideas. Tyler had ideas. Everybody was bringing ideas. I had ideas. We were just trying to pool all of our resources and come up with songs.
So once y'all thought y'all had enough, how did y'all get into? Where did y'all play at on the strip, and how'd y'all?
The first gig we played was at the Troubadour on Santa Monica, and anybody could play there. You could play there as long as you got money, and that's the way it was. It's like if you had, I don't know what the fee was, say $200, $250. You go, we want to play here, and they go, okay, I don't know you from anybody, but here's 40 tickets.
No, Rich, it was way more than that, dude. It was like
okay,
it was like $1,000, $1,200.
No, it wasn't that much.
I'm pretty
because
sure.
I remember we all had to kind of come up with like $100. It wasn't that much. So it was because I was definitely not coming up with a couple $100. I don't think it was over 1,000. Maybe you're right. I remember it as like $400 or $500, but
okay, 500 to 1,000 was normally what they charged.
Yeah, and listen, we didn't mind the pay to play thing because it's like, okay, we get it. You guys are going to give us some tickets. If we don't pre-sell these and sell them to our fans and get the word out, then we're going to have to come out of our pocket and pay for this. And we didn't want to do that. We were always
not just that. It's like there was a resource. The Sunset Strip had all of these people. You just had to pluck a certain percentage of them and go and get them to come to your show. That was the game. The game was, here are these guys, kids. I was 21 years old, and the game was this: convince as many people to come to your show. I mean, they didn't know us from anybody. So how do you do that? Well, the only way to do that is to go up there and fight it out with the other bands. They're handing out flyers, you're handing out flyers, and everybody's trying to get people to come to the show. You go, hey, come see us play on Friday night, 2 Friday nights from now, whatever. And then they go, who are you? And I'm like, oh, we're Sister Whiskey and blah, blah, blah. And then, so now you're in sales mode. You're trying to get people to come. You're hugging all these people. You're shaking hands. You're kissing babies, the whole bit. And then hopefully, not only will they come, but now you got to convince them to buy a $5 ticket. So this is not an easy task for a starting band. But if you have enough, desire, or I don't know, how did you do it? How did you get people after you knew them? Before you knew them, how did you get them to come, Dennis?
No, you and I were going out.
No, but what was your sales tactic? Is what I'm asking.
Don't buy stuff from Richie. Buy them from me. No, I'm joking. No. Look, you
same thing.
We would just go out and we would go out and make friends with people, and then you become friendly with people. And then hopefully, they're going to gravitate to different guys in the band, and that's fine. Everybody's got different friends, and we would just sell them tickets. And there was no big mystery to it.
So the first show was the hardest one. So it's the hardest one because nobody knows you. You're competing with all these other bands that are doing the same thing and have been up there a long time. Like one of our good friends was like in one of the hottest bands up there. They packed the place 2 nights in a row. They weren't really flying, but they were like one of the biggest bands, and they showed us the way. I mean, my friend Henry, he was in a band called Swingin' Thing, and Henry basically showed me the ins and outs of what to do. This is what you got to do. You got to go here. You got to go there. You got to do this. You got to, and we did them. We all did it.
Mm-hmm.
So once it came time to playing the show, we did have a crowd, and we had a crowd by hook or crook. We got them there, whether we maybe even had to eat some of the tickets and give them away or pay some of it ourselves. Well, we had a crowd there. And do you remember the first show?
Yeah. I do. Remember we had 2 strippers on stage with whips. Remember that?
Okay, so what happened was the story behind this is if you watch the Simple Man video, you'll see like a girl on the stage. So what I did was I was on the strip one night and I met these 2 girls and I said to them, would you be willing to dress up like nuns, but like nuns habits, but wear like, your stripper outfit and then come up on stage and like hit us and stuff, like with whips and whatever. And they were like, yeah, cool. And I was like, how did that happen? I was like, you can't really ask that to the normal person, but hey, they said yes. I didn't even expect them to show up, right? They just showed up. Like, I said it in passing, it wasn't like we rehearsed with them. In fact, I only wanted them to stay on for one song. They stood on for the whole set.
Yeah. That was funny.
We'll show that video later too. But I was reading what y'all had to do was pretty much the same thing that Poison, Van Halen, Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses, all them bands that started off on the Sunset Strip, they had to do that same promotion to get going. They all did the exact same stuff.
Yeah. Ultimately, these promoters that run the clubs, they want people in there. They want the place packed, and then they want people buying drinks. And we became friends with Lance at the Troubadour, and our crowd was a big drinking crowd. So every time we played, he knew he was going to make a lot of money at the bar, and he loved us. So he's like, "Yep, bring those guys in. They've got a drinking crowd." So these owners of the clubs and then the promoters, they want feet, and butts in the seats, and they want it crowded and people buying booze. So, and that was our crowd. So we didn't have a problem selling the tickets.
So how did you decide where to play? I noticed you probably played 4 or 5 different clubs on the strip. So
yeah, I mean, I think everybody played the same places, and we didn't really play any of the Valley. I don't remember playing the Valley clubs, not until later on, but we played the Troubadour, and we played Roxy and the Gazaris and the Whiskey, and the Red Light District.
Yeah, that was called Club Spice.
Yeah, Club Spice, and probably like 1 or 2 other places that I can't remember. But Joe Hayes is better like this than we are. So he's FM Station wasn't. We didn't play that until later on, Joe.
Yeah, FM Station was a popular. It's not there anymore. I think they tore it down. But
I know, but we didn't play that until after we were signed.
Yeah, but mainly those clubs. And our what we were trying to do was make a Sister Whiskey show an event. And so if you're playing out every week in Hollywood, people are going to get burnt out on you, So we tried to play every 6 weeks, is what, 4 to 6, 8 weeks, so that you're not playing so often that people don't want to come out and see you, but you're playing so little that when you do play, it's an event. And so that's how we worked it.
So once you got playing, how did you get the labels so they would sign you?
Well, every show, I mean, Dennis could attest to this. Every show there was this conversation. We'd play a show, and then somebody in the band or somebody would come up to us. I'm from so-and-so records. We're interested in talking, or so-and-so's coming down, remember? Like so-and-so from some record company's coming down. So play well tonight, but nothing would happen. It was like there was a lot of industry buzz always around, but a lot of it was either like, just hopefulness. And, part of it was just like, who knows how people get noticed, but it's a lot of the time it's not even through the band. It's like somebody likes you and tell somebody else, or I mean that's how it happened for us. But I remember every show was like, so and so from Warner Brothers is coming out, or some record company, and make sure you play well tonight. They could be out there. You got to play well. Like,
yeah, we were always pretty tight because we rehearsed all the time. I mean, we were playing at least 5 days a week, 4 or 5 hours a day. We would rehearse into the night and then sleep during the day. And did you have a job, Richie? I didn't have a job. Did you?
I used to work at the moving company. Remember, I would
right. That's right.
I go down there and make a couple of bucks just to pay some bills, and then, but they were used to me just coming in whenever I felt like it. It wasn't like a real job. Like if you showed up in the morning and you wanted to work, they put you to work, and then if you didn't show up, you didn't work.
Yeah. I think I was doing telemarketing at the time, but back to what Rich was saying, there was people sniffing around at the time, but I don't think we had it all the way together at that point.
Now here's an interesting thing that happened pre Warner Brothers. We had a fan who was a friend, and she said, "I like you guys, and I will pay for you to make a demo." And so not only did she pay for a demo, did she hook us up with I forget his name, the guy who recorded us?
Yeah, Pat something.
Pat. So this lady, her name was Diane. Diane?
Yeah.
I don't even know. We all called her Di. She was older than us, but she paid for our first demo, 4 songs. And after we completed that, we would go to, now there was, on Sunset Strip, there was one side of the street was all the clubs, but on the other side of the street, there was one little sushi bar. And that's where, like, if you didn't really fit in across the street where all the big time players of Hollywood, rock and roll Hollywood, at the Rainbow, you went to the sushi bar. It was kind of like, it's just for drinking. It was like drinking, and like it was like less money. It was just cheaper place to drink. So we would go there, and every time we showed up, these two twin brothers who owned the place, they would play our music from the time we got there to the time we left. They would just play it on a loop.
Yeah, I remember that.
And we would just be up there like drinking, hanging out, and these guys would play those 4 songs that we did on a demo, and we would just hang out there. It was cool.
Joe just texted me. He said it was called Tin Masa.
Oh yeah, Tin Masa, yeah.
Yeah.
Joe knows. Joe should be on this with us because he knows more than I do.
No, Joe. You know what? If we do another one on the 60-year one, yeah, we'll get Joe on here. No, Joe was a good friend of ours and a roadie and a helper, just an all around good dude, friend. And
behind his back we called him like really bad names. We used to curse him a lot. He was just good. No, Joe's a great friend. He's still a great friend of ours.
Right.
He's texting us as we speak.
Yeah.
We had a lot of good times with Joe. Joe is prominently featured on that video, the Follies one.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the secret one I ain't gonna mention, but I want to go ahead and show. I'm gonna go ahead and show this Simple Man video. I mean, not Simple Man. I'm gonna show the Memphis Row video because that was kind of done before y'all got signed. Kind of a snippet of some of y'all's shows before y'all got signed, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go back to big screen, and this is Rich actually made this video, and it's on his website. This is a song that wasn't on the release, but one of the pretty big songs called Memphis Road.
It's called Memphis Roads.
Benny, there's no audio. Benny, there's no audio.
Yeah, StreamYard likes to mute out stuff like that, apparently.
Huh?
StreamYard likes to mute out the audio, so it probably isn't.
I can barely hear your mic too. I can barely hear you.
Okay, I went back down a little. There you
There
go.
you go.
Here you go. Yeah.
But I think StreamYard wanted to strip out the vocals, so it will be on the link to Rich's YouTube if you want to watch it with the music. But that's kind of what they look like playing on the strip.
Yeah, that most of that stuff was shot at the Troubadour, wasn't it, Richie?
There was 2 Troubadour shows and 1 Gazzari show.
Oh, okay.
Now, did y'all have to pay to get video made, or?
No, we acquired
No, dude,
video camera.
you know who it was? It was actually, here's another Henderson connection for you. It was Yael Hafner, God rest her soul. She passed away, but her brother Mark still lives in Henderson and dates.
Yes, I know all about them.
Yeah, but Yael lived. She's from Henderson. She lived out in California, and she was going to Cal State Northridge, and she was studying film or something, and she had a
Yes,
couple
she was a set dresser for the
Yes.
Flintstone film. I know that.
Yeah, and she also drew the first Sister Whiskey logo. She's the one that drew it.
Wow.
Yeah. But I
Not
think
really.
Yael, some of that footage, Richie, was from the house footage, like at the Troubadour, because that house footage, there was a camera up there at the top in the bleachers. So that's
Yeah.
house footage. But some of the stuff at Gazzari's, I think Yael shot it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the question. I kind of know the answer, but how did y'all actually get signed to Warner Brothers?
You want to tell them, Rich?
Well, we had, like we said before, we had a roommate. Her name was Angie, and she was a Slaughter fan, and she was a very nice person to us. We got along with her. I don't even know how she ended up in our house. I mean, some of this stuff really escapes me because I don't remember a lot of it. I mean, it was a long time ago, but Angie ended up in our apartment in the bedroom, and she
Hang on, let me clarify something. Let me clarify something.
Yeah.
When Richie says in the bedroom, he means she had her own bedroom, and then Richie
Right.
slept out in the living room, and then I slept on the other side of the living room and the thing. And she was,
Right.
I think she was a fan of ours, and she became
right, but how
friendly
did
with
she
us.
end up living with us?
I think we asked her to move in to help us pay rent, and then she moved
Okay,
in with
so-
Rachel. Yeah.
So she moved in with another girl. They shared the bedroom. Dennis and I slept in the living room, and she was a big Slaughter fan. And Angie used to call them or call their fan line, and God knows say what. I don't know what she said, but during those conversations, or she left messages on it, she used to talk about us. I live with a band. They're really good. They're popular in Hollywood. Blah 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 blah. So one day, we were getting ready to play the Troubadour, and because I remember this very specifically, and at the time somehow our telephone was on, which is not always the case, and I was getting some stuff together. The phone rang. I picked it up, and the other person on the line said, "Hey, this is Dana Strum from Slaughter. Is this one of the guys in Sister Whiskey?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Your roommate Angie's been talking a lot about you. I really like to see you." I said, "Well, we're playing tonight at the Troubadour." He goes, "Well, I don't want to come down while you're playing. Can I come down to your sound check?" I said, yeah, come down. So he came down. Dana Strum came to our sound check. We played 4, 5 songs, whatever it was. In fact, I think I remember we started playing a song. We'd play it. He'd stop us. He'd go, play another one. We'd play a song. We didn't get through it all. He'd stop us. Then he called us down off the stage, and he took us into that front bar. There was 2 bars. There was front bar and a bar inside. We went into the front bar. He goes, I like you guys. I get what you're trying to do. Can we, I think we could, like do a production deal, and I'll put you in a studio. We'll work out some songs. And we were like, really? That's it? He's like, yeah. So you want to do it? And we were like, yeah, cool.
I remember him specifically saying to us, I don't know if you remember this or not, Rich, but he said, who's in charge of the band? And then everybody looks at me and Tyler, and he goes, both of you guys are idiots. And we were like, what? He goes, yeah, if you want to be a rock star, you got to look like a rock star all the time. Why are you guys, you all look like you're going to the beach. He's like, don't come to sound check looking like you're going to the beach. He's like, don't y'all have a look or something? He's like, and I said, yeah, I mean, we could come to the show dressed the part. He goes, no, dude, that's not how rock stars do it. You look that part every day. Do you remember that? And he goes,
yeah, I remember.
He goes, and you guys are in trouble too, because there ain't no drummer. Remember he was talking about Ange. He said, there ain't no drummer that should have a double kick, huge rack kit for a Southern rock style band. And we were like, okay, well, but he was pointing out all these things to us that, we didn't know. We were just a bunch of young kids on the strip, But that's what Richie said. He literally said, I think I can help you guys. And, he was trying to be funny with us and joke with us and poke at us a little bit. But that's how that came about, is Angie was calling the fan line and leaving him messages and maybe talking to him. I don't know.
Yeah, no, we never, after it all went, after we started working with Dana, it went really fast. Things were happening fast. One of maybe the next day, I don't remember this exactly, but he put us in a rehearsal space, and we were rehearsing right next to Motley Crue.
Yep.
And Motley Crue was transitioning between the old Vince Neil and the new guy.
Yep.
And he was there. John Corabi was there.
Yep.
But I remember the Motley Crue guys were outside when we were outside, and they were chit-chatting. We were chit-chatting. We weren't talking with them, but we were like, wow, this is kind of weird. We're like hanging out right next to Motley Crue, and there they are. They're like, it was very
it's like last night we were at the Troubadour, and now we're rehearsing next door to Motley Crue. It was the weirdest thing, dude. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah. And you remember shortly I think we rehearsed there maybe 2 or 3 days, maybe. And do you remember Strum? You remember what Strum came in and did? He said,
no, what?
Oh, you don't remember this? This is hilarious.
No.
He came in after about the second or third, maybe 4th day. We weren't there a week at all. He goes, y'all get y'all shit together. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? He goes, pack up all your stuff. We're moving. I go, why? He goes, Nikki Sixx is over. Every time I come up to the door, he's standing at y'all's door and listening to what y'all are playing. I was like, really? He's like, oh yeah. He's standing and listening to what y'all are doing. I was like, okay.
Now from there, we went to another studio right before Randy Rhoads played in Quiet Riot. There was another guy, that guy Drew, right?
Wasn't that Studio D?
Yeah, Studio D. That's what Joey reminded us of. Studio D was owned by the first guitar player of Quiet Riot before Randy Rhoads.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that guy Drew was the first guitar player in Quiet Riot.
Oh, I didn't realize
that was the connection for Strum, because Strum knew those guys in Quiet Riot, so he knew that guy Drew. So that guy was right on Olive.
Yeah,
right by the
I remember it.
By the car dealer or something.
Yeah. Oh, dude, you know what? I just remembered. After we moved from that downtown LA studio, that rehearsal studio, we went to Nightingale Studios is where we rehearsed.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we did. Yeah, we
Night-
did.
That guy's name was Mike Nightingale, and I think he's still there, or at least at
No,
studio.
he's not in that location. He's in a much bigger location.
Oh, okay.
You were there with us that one time. Remember when we got together again real quick?
Oh yeah.
That was his studio.
Okay. But dude,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was it Drew? Was that what it's called? Studio D?
Yeah, that's what Joe said. I wouldn't remember that, but Joe said it was Studio D.
Yeah. But that was a nice studio. And what ended up happening from there, Benny, is that Strum was trying to help us write and getting songs together for us, and he was trying to feel his way out through all of this because he didn't know what he had, and we didn't know what we had at that point, you know. And so he was just kind of taking a chance on us. And so as he was going through our songs, and then we're learning new stuff, and he's bringing in ideas, as he starts to get on track with a sound for us and starts to craft some songs with us, he starts to feel a little bit of momentum, and then he starts to bring in the people that are closest to him, like his publisher, his label. That way he knew if he got some feedback from them and they hated it, then he wasn't going to burn a bridge, you know?
Yeah.
So he was kind of testing the waters to say, hey, you guys come in and check out these guys I'm working with. Tell me if I'm on the right track. Do you like it? What, what is it, And so as he started to pick up some momentum and people were getting excited about it, that's when he started inviting in the bigger labels, the EMI, the Interscope, the Warner Brothers, all those people.
Now, out of that little studio, the first thing that happened, I remember, was people coming down, listening to the songs, and there was a publishing interest first.
Yeah.
If I remember.
Yeah.
So the publishing companies came in and they were interested. Now, based on that, then other people started coming in, and there was, I think we counted 5 or 6 different labels. One notable was Jimmy Iovine. You know who Jimmy Iovine is, Benny? Well, Jimmy Iovine was in our studio. He gave us a lot of good advice. The Freddie something from Maverick Records.
Freddie DeMann,
he was Madonna's partner on Maverick Records.
Yep. Remember Guy Osiri? He came in. He was the manager at the time. Yeah.
So everybody that came in either offered us a deal, or the only one that didn't offer us a deal was Jimmy Iovine. He said he thought we should go on the road and gain some experience, and just he liked us, but he wanted us to just go on the road first.
No, dude, here's what he wanted us to do, and he had the best plan. If we hindsight's 2020, he had the best plan. His plan was, look, he offered us a deal. It wasn't that much money.
He did?
Yeah, he did offer us a deal. I think it was like $100,000 or something. And he said, you guys get a deal, but here's what I want to do with you. He's like, I want to do what I did with Primus with you guys. You'll record for 4 weeks, for 3 weeks, or whatever, and then I'm going to base you guys out of like St. Louis, Missouri. So then you'll go to St. Louis. We'll set you up in a house. You'll go from St. Louis to Memphis to Little Rock, and you'll play for like 4 to 6 weeks. And when we wrap that up, we'll bring you back to LA. You'll record some more, and then we'll send you back there. And we'll keep doing that for about a year. And he said, by the time your record's ready and it's ready to come out, then you guys will have developed a following. And that was the best plan. And hindsight being 2020, that was the deal we should have took.
So anyway, so we had that, and everybody was offering us different things. We narrowed it down to 2 companies, EMI and Warner Brothers. And EMI representative was Clive
Davis's son.
Clive Davis's son.
Fred Davis.
And Fred Davis, the son of Clive Davis, he was like, you guys got to come out to New York. So get on a plane and come out to New York and meet the whole troupe. So we were like, holy crap, what is happening? So we were like, we weren't sure what was happening. So we all get on a plane. We go like first class or business class or whatever it was.
Hey, here's the other thing, Benny. Is now remember, this is maybe from the time Strum found us until it wasn't even a month, man.
Yeah, it was very
so
short
fast.
period.
And
Yeah.
so we were playing at the Troubadour, and then we're rehearsing next door to Motley Crue. And then, like Richie said, we were going to fly to New York. They're picking us up in limos, flying us first class. Remember, Rich, on the way back from New York, we were in the top cabin of the TWA Airlines. So there's like second level that's very exclusive, and they put the band up there in the top level. It was crazy. There might have been maybe a dozen seats up there or something. Weird.
Yeah.
We were just these 5 dudes playing in Hollywood, and all of a sudden we're being courted and flown all over the place, and it was crazy, man.
Yeah.
And
so
I don't know if you remember this, Rich.
Yeah, go ahead.
Strum came in and said, "Okay, you guys need a ballad." He's like, "I've got this ballad." Remember, it was "Excuse Me," okay?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, he played it for us, and he said, "Do y'all like it?" And we're like, "Yeah." And he goes, "All right, you got 2 hours to learn it." Do you remember that? Yeah. He goes, and we were like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, you got to learn it. You got 2 hours." I was like, "Dude, there's no way we can learn this and pull it off." He was like, "Push play, write down the words. You guys learn it. Do the best you can." I said, "Well, dude, I'm not going to be able to remember these."
Why? Because somebody was coming in to watch us play it?
Yes, his publisher was coming in. Tom Sturgis was coming in. And he goes, "You guys got to learn it." So he's like, "Just read the lyrics off your notebook, Dennis." And he said, "Whenever you hear the band start to fall apart, just stop them. But we're going to set it up as, hey, Tom, this is something new that we're working on. We don't quite have it down yet. You know, this is a song we're working on." We didn't say it was our song that we wrote, but so as we're playing it, it starts to fall apart, and then I stop it, and I'm literally singing and reading the lyrics as if we just wrote it that day, And so he immediately jumped out of his seat. He gets excited, and he offered us, based on that song, he offered us a publishing deal. Well, funny story is that wasn't even our song. So, a publisher is in the business of buying songs and publishing them and exploiting them and having them make money for the company and the artist. So I remember, whenever we did our album release party at where was that place?
Palominos.
Palominos, that's right. He called me the next day, and he goes, because I was living with Susan at the time, and he said, "You got me, Dennis." I was like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "You got me." I was like, "What are you talking about, man?" He goes, "I thought that was y'all's song the whole time." He's like, "I signed y'all off a song that wasn't even mine."
Yeah.
It was in his catalog, though. He just didn't know it was in his catalog. So he already owned the publishing on it. But anyway, I thought that was a funny story.
So at what point did y'all go into the studio, and where did y'all record? And why is the information in the album credits not quite the truth?
I mean, we went to, I think we went to a few different studios, but the main studio we went to was Sonic Suites.
Yeah, it's the old Pasha Studios.
Pasha Studio, yeah.
Spencer Proffer owned it, and that's where they did Quiet Riot and a bunch of those records.
Who owned it? Spencer
Proffer.
Who was he? What was he?
He's the guy that discovered Quiet Riot and owned most of that stuff. But it was Pasha Records, and then he had Pasha Studios and all that stuff. So he had Quiet Riot and a few other bands. Yeah,
so then it became Sonic Suite somehow. I don't know when we were there, but Strum took us there, and after we did the main tracks, I seem to remember. First thing we did was we recorded the drum. Remember, Andrew recorded the drums remember it was like we did the drums first, and then we did like that electronic kit.
Yeah.
We did that somewhere. Maybe it was like at a studio.
I don't remember where that was, but basically what it was is I think Strum, this was the early versions of Pro Tools maybe.
Yeah.
And so he was putting the kicks and snares in MIDI, and then he would trigger the sounds with the MIDI.
Yeah.
Then what they would do is they would go back and they would set up a drum kit, and then
Yeah.
the drummer the kick and snare would already be in the song, right?
Yeah.
The song would
And
be
then they put in live cymbals.
live
Yeah.
cymbals and toms is what he'd do. So he
Yeah.
could get that room sound, but the kick and snare was consistent is what he did.
So we did something really hokey with that. And then so then we went to the studio, and we were there. See, there's a lot of like haziness on this part because we weren't all at the studio at the same time. We recorded it. What year did we start recording? Was it 92?
92, yeah.
What like in the later part of 92 or
No,
when was
I
it?
think Strum found us like in the summer of 92, and by within like August or something, we were rehearsing and coming up with songs, and then I think maybe by October, November, we were in the studio.
Okay, but so we were in the studio for 3, 4, 5, 6 months or something.
Yeah, maybe something like I remember going back home to Henderson over Christmas, and I think the record was done by that point.
Okay, but we weren't all at the studio at the same time, so there was like, obviously we did the drums first, and then we did the guitars. Or no, then we did bass. I was in there pretty early, did my part. Then we did the guitars, and then the vocals. And then we had like people sing on the record. We had people. Kenny Aronoff played on our record.
Yeah, Glenn Hughes from Deep Purple sang on it.
Andrew's in the chat too.
Huh?
Andrew Dunleavy's in the chat, and he said the drums. He said the drums on the record were Lynn.
Okay.
There were Lynn drums, and isn't Lynn drum like an older? I remember I had an old Lynn drum machine. So they were, but I remember them being like pads. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
Yeah, but Ange, did we? I don't know. He's probably going to chat. But so did we do? Because I remember Strum was like, "Oh, we got Led Zeppelin, John Bonham's drum sounds somehow," and then you went back and was a demo kit. Okay. See, I don't remember. He knows that he should be on there with us. So
yeah.
But anyway, Ange did his part. I did my part, and then we did guitars, and then we did vocals. The vocals took a long time just because it was like just a long process of doing backgrounds, and it was just we never really were we came to visit, but wasn't really like there a lot.
I got to be honest with you, dude. It was the first time that I'd ever really. I mean, I'd been in recording studios and recorded stuff, but not at that level. And
yeah,
I'll never forget this. It took me 4 days to get the first verse of a song on Simple Man. And I thought I was never going to get it, man. I was like, I don't understand it. And whenever you're hearing yourself come back in headphones and you're projecting and getting into character, and you got a pitch and phrasing, and it was all completely new to me,
Like you can't hide behind the band.
No.
Like everything is very clear. And you know what I remember too? I'm sure my brother was in town one time, and we were fighting. I don't know if you remember this.
Me and you?
We were no, the band. We were fighting amongst ourselves. I don't remember. It was probably with Dominic. You know how that went. And we were fighting, and I remember my brother was in town, and my brother was in the studio that day, and Strum was like talking to my brother about like what a bunch of douchebags we were because we were like little kids fighting, And my brother was like, "What's going on with you guys? You're in a studio recording an album. What's your problem?" I was like, I don't know, just like you forget, like at some point we were just, I don't know. It was a lot of frustration on. Okay, he's back to the Lindrum thing.
Okay.
The Lindrum format was there was a format version of the Lindrum. The pads were where we did pad. Didn't we do pads, Ange, when we recorded the record? They did drum. There was like electronic drums. I don't know. I don't remember.
No, at what point did y'all use the mobile studio in Las Vegas?
Okay, so I don't care. I'm not burning any bridges because I don't think anybody cares about this anyway. But what happened was strong. Okay, I'm going to start from the end and work backwards. So when we were done with the record and we were talking to, they said, get your credits together. Okay, get all the people you want to say thanks to. And so I was taking everybody's notes, and then he called me and goes, are you working on the credits? I said, yeah. He goes, you got to put thanks to Mobile Studios. I was like, what is Mobile Studios? He goes, well, there was a couple of nights that I was like two-timing my old lady, and I told her that I was unavailable because we were riding around in a mobile studio and I was unavailable. I was like, what's a mobile studio? He goes, Mobile Inc. Right? Who said that? Is that Joe? Yeah, Mobile Inc. So he goes, I told her we were in a van or a truck driving around recording. I was like, why would we do that? Why would we be driving? I don't understand. He goes, just put it in there.
Yeah, I've heard that story, so I know it's about there.
Oh, it's funny.
Yeah, so it was about Strum. He was cheating on his girlfriend or whoever she was, and he needed an excuse to, like I guess on the fly he must have said, "I'm in the studio." She's like, "Well, why can't I call you?" He goes, "The studio is mobile." What do you mean mobile? What are you in a RV driving around LA recording? Yeah, Alyssa. Yeah, I don't want to see your name, but I don't know. I don't think it matters.
There was all kinds of shenanigans, not just from Strum. I mean, look, we were having a good time. It was a lot of fun, man. And there was some shenanigans going. We were all had silly stuff going on. Yeah, there was some fighting, but for the most part, man, it was a time of my life, man. I don't know about you, Rich, but I look back on it fondly.
Well, it was like there were like the moments I remember fondly was like remember we were all doing the TJ Martell stuff.
Yeah.
There was so I think in between, like I think as we were recording, Strum asked us to do a TJ Martell
benefit, like a cancer fundraiser thing.
Cancer fund, but it was 3 days. One was bowling, one was an auction, and one was
softball.
Something else. Oh yeah, was it softball?
Something like that.
I don't know, but I remember we did the bowling thing. We met Leo Fender. Remember, we all took pictures with Leo Fender.
Yep.
I was talking to Bruce Kulick.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to Bruce Kulick for like an hour. We talking about the Boomtown Rats because he was in the Boomtown Rats. It was cool,
there was a
man.
photo
really cool.
There was a photo of that in one of the metal magazines back in that day of a couple of y'all with him. I know Dennis was in the picture.
Yeah. We were, and you know who? So I went into the restroom, and who was in there was Billy Sheehan. Ange went on tour with those guys, but Billy Sheehan was in there, and the guy from Enough's Enough.
Yeah.
And they were just chit chatting, taking a leak, chit chatting. I was like, man, this is crazy.
Yeah.
What the hell am I doing here?
Well, another thing I found interesting, who signed y'all to Warner Brothers? It was
his name was Rob Cavallo,
and he ended up being the president of Warner Brothers down the road, right?
I think so.
Then, he was. He still may be, but his son was y'all's AR, right?
No, it's Rob. Rob Cavallo was our A&R guy, and Bob Cavallo was the former president.
Okay, his dad was.
Rob Cavallo is probably the president, the one that represented us. While he was making our record, he's simultaneously making Bookie. So he, he hit big with that one, obviously, and that made his career. So,
Yeah,
but
I
he
knew
was
he
super cool, man. I
discovered
really
Green
liked
Day
him.
too,
Yeah.
because that was the name. When I seen it, I was like, that dude discovered Green Day.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey man.
And our manager was Scott Welsh. Dennis told me that he's like a big time manager over in Nashville now.
Yeah. Hey, I'll tell you a funny story.
Yeah, I was ahead of you, Joe.
Rob, whenever he found Green, because as I understand it, Rob signed this band called L7, and then he signed us, and then he signed Green Day. And L7 was like a famous punk, I think maybe all female. Yeah, it's all female punk band. And but anyway, I remember Rob calling me one time and saying, "Hey, I'm going to check out this band in San Francisco, and it's a 3-piece, blah blah blah." And so when he gets back, he gives me the demo of Green Day, and he says, "Take this and listen to it, and let me know what you think." And I didn't know anything about punk rock music, but I listened to it, and I told him, I was like, "Dude, I don't get it, man. It's not for me. It's I'm some dude from Kentucky, But I'll never forget that he gave me that cassette. And he said, "Go listen to it. I think I'm going to sign him." And I just told him, I remember calling him back, and I was like, "I mean, it's punk rock, man. I don't know anything about punk rock. I'm a country dude from Kentucky,
Joe, they also had something to do with Joe said they had something to do with the Goo Goo Dolls.
Yeah, that was
Goo Goo Dolls and the Misfits.
Yeah.
Oh, Bob was a manager for our manager also managed Prince. He was Prince's manager mainly.
Yeah.
And he managed Goo Goo Dolls and Misfits.
Paul Abdul,
yeah.
Earth, Wind, and Fire. He managed them too.
Oh, and what's that other band? Like a 70s or 60s band, Humble Pie. Did he say he worked with Humble Pie?
Maybe, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a question from the chat for you. Who were your musical idols?
Who's Baby Ice?
She's just a friend of mine.
Oh, okay. What are musical idols? Go ahead.
I grew up listening to stuff like Alabama, a lot of country music, and a lot of Beach Boys. My mom was a big fan of the Beach Boys. In fact, whenever we were doing the record, I remember him asking me this. He's like, "Did you listen to a lot of Beach Boys growing up?" And I'm like, "Yeah, all the time." He's like, "A lot of your harmonies and your melody ideas are very Beach Boys-esque over this country stuff." I was like, "Oh, I didn't realize it." But so I listened to a lot of Beach Boys. And then I got into stuff like Aerosmith, Foreigner, Bad Company. Always loved Montrose, Sammy Hagar. So those are the types of, as far as singers, big Sammy Hagar fan growing up, and Steven Tyler, big time. And Kiss, I love Kiss too. What about you, Rich? Who's yours?
Well, Joe, said Elvis, and it's true that my dad was an Elvis fan. I grew up listening to Elvis and Motown, and then once I started to break out on my own, the first band was Kiss. Me and my brother and my sister jumped around the room. We imitated the members of Kiss. And I was always, I don't know why it was Gene, like from the get-go, very early, I was Gene. My brother was Peter Chris. My sister, God knows what she was. But Kiss, and then I started getting into Queen, and then I really got into the Beatles. I was like a very big Beatles fan, still am. John Lennon, and so early on it was definitely Kiss. It was like I went to see them at Madison Square Garden in 1980 during the Dynasty tour.
I saw that too.
And yeah, and then I got into Iron Maiden. I got into Judas Priest and Metallica. Got into more heavier music. you know, I grew up in Staten Island, and Staten Island was a lot of musicians, Staten Island, New York, and we, you know, there was a lot of bands playing, and a lot of bands were influencing each other, and we, you know, we would play Twisted Sister, we would play, you know, all the big acts of the time. We were in cover bands, and then we started doing our own music. So I wasn't really into Motley Crue and those kind of bands too much, but yeah, mainly Kiss. Kiss was it.
Yeah, I love Kiss too, man. They were great. Still are.
Wow.
So after y'all signed and everything, what ended up happening to end the band?
You know,
always,
I think it's you know, it's one of those things that we always ponder, and we always like, why did it not go well for us?
Richie and I have talked about this for off and on for 30 years, man. Haven't we, Rich?
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
and you know, in the
grunge
end, it's
came
like,
on the scene.
well, we weren't really. I can't really say that we were affected by that, because we didn't have. I mean, maybe we were in some ways, but we had more of a heavy rock sound. So I think we could have made it through there if we would have like concentrated on like the more heavier side of our band. The bands that were having trouble were the ones that were very vanilla, and I don't think we were very vanilla. I think we had a lot of content. We had a lot of songs that meant something. It wasn't just a lot of fluff. It wasn't. Dennis didn't sing about you know, drinking and chicks. It was more substance to our songs, and I think that's what set us apart. But we, you know, I think you had to boil it down. We were just very, very naive, and we didn't. The reason why we broke up, and the reason why we didn't continue on, is because we were very naive. I think that was, we were too young and not ready for all of that at once.
yeah, and we made a lot of very bad decisions. We you know, it happened so quick, man. It was, you know, it happened so quick for us, and I think there was some. I think in many ways we actually took that for granted, and we thought, you know, there'll be another one around the corner, and there just wasn't. You know,
Yeah.
We were surrounded by
also, yeah,
we were
Okay.
surrounded by the right people, but we really needed somebody to just jerk us by the, you know, shirt and be like, "Hey, man, y'all just play music and shut the F up, and, you know, keep doing what you're doing. Leave all the other stuff to the people that do what they do." And I
like
think,
imagine we had a manager, right, when we were coming up. Let's just say Di was our manager, right?
mhm,
She knew us. She knew how to wrangle us in. Not that she did, and not that we could ever let her, but let's just say there was a person, this figment of our imagination, and they came up with us instead of the way it did. Like we got signed, then they assigned some guy who didn't know us.
yeah,
He didn't. Scott Welsh didn't know us. He didn't know what we were about. He couldn't talk sense into us. Like if we were talking about getting rid of, you know, or dropping or this one or doing something or weird, he would have talked some sense into us if he knew us. But since nobody knew us and nobody had any kind of reign over us, we just did whatever we wanted. There was nobody of sound mind.
yeah. We made some bad decisions, and we should have had someone that, yeah, like Rich said, if we would have had a mentor and said, who have been able to walk us through it, that knew us,
and also that we trusted.
Yeah. It was hard, man. It happened so quick. There's a lot of things going on at that. When you get to that level, it's a different ball game. There's a different set of expectations on you, and there's, you can't believe everything you hear from other people, and there's some head games that start to happen. Not just from other people, but on yourself, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on, and it was very difficult to navigate. I mean, hell, I was 24, 25. And
No, you weren't that old, bro. You're like more like 22, 23.
Was that 23?
Yeah,
Maybe
30 years ago.
Yeah.
You're
No,
55.
I would have been 23 when Strum found us. By the time the record came out, I would have been, Okay. So, I was 23 years old. But Richie and I were talking about this. I was talking about this with another friend of mine from Henderson recently, about this kid that most people that know me know that I'm a big fan of basketball. And so there's a kid that we've been following, and his dad is a mutual friend of ours. And, he's trying to get into the NBA now, and somebody gave him the wrong advice, and he didn't get drafted, and he's a really good player. He needed another year, but we made it to the NBA with Warner Brothers, right? We got in the game, right? Or we got in the arena to play the game. We just, whenever we were practicing, and we just let too much stuff affect us, and infighting and catfighting and just being petty, that we just kind of imploded, man. Nothing that anyone else did to us resulted in what happened. It was all self-imposed stuff. Wouldn't you agree, Rich?
Yeah, that, and we weren't ready for it.
Yeah.
We were maturity level, and I think also the expectations of what we were supposed to do, you really need a mentor to go, okay, slow down. You got signed, but that doesn't mean shit. What means something is you have to still prove yourself. So now you went from garage band to bar band. Now you need to work on road band. And if somebody would have slowed us down, and we were like, why aren't we on the we're a Warner Brothers band, why aren't we on the bill with Van Halen? And we were like, what's going on here? Why isn't Warner Brothers doing their job? And they don't, they have no room unless we made a video and we were getting some big hubbub about our new video, which we never made. And we're getting a lot of traction somewhere. Basically, nobody knows us. Nobody knew us. So we were essentially nobodies. So if somebody would have just said, listen, there is a way to build a fan base, you just got to take your time. But we wanted instant recognition, instant satisfaction. That's what we've been getting. We were like on this whirlwind of even when we started the band. When we started the band, we instantly got fans. It was like, you go see other bands, they didn't get the draw we had. They didn't have the numbers of people come to see them. They didn't have the press. I mean, I kept a lot of the press clippings that we had. There was a lot of bands that did not get the kind of attention that we got, even at a local level. And I think we thought that that momentum should have kept going through our professional recording existence. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, no, man, all of that. There was no real one thing that killed it. It was kind of doomed as we went along, and it was nobody's fault. It was our fault. It was our fault.
Yeah, of course.
It is what it is,
Now, Dennis, after all that,
what's that?
After all that happened, at what point did you start working production for American Idol?
That was probably 10 years later. So that was.
You were still in LA?
No, I left LA in 94, went to Nashville, joined another band, got another deal, and then with BMG Australia, and ended up walking on that one. Another mistake of mine. Didn't let that one develop the way it should have. And then I went up to Detroit for a while and worked with some people up there in the Bob Seger Kid Rock circle. And then from there, I went back to Nashville. And then a friend of mine, he and I started a record label. And then I went back out to LA, and it's right around then I was working on this Christian project, and the guy that was mixing the Christian project got hired to mix some things on American Idol, and he and I became really good friends. And he mixed one season of just some random things that they were doing, and then they approached him and said, "Hey, can you put together a team, because we're going to try to start recording the contestants every week." And he said, "Yeah, we could put together a team." So he called me, and then he said, "We're going to need a third person." And I said, "Well, this guy that just installed my Pro Tools rig here in LA, he works over at Westlake Audio. He's a good guy. I mean, I've become friends with him, and he knows his way around Pro Tools." I said, "We should talk to him and see if we can bring him on the team." So it was Jonathan Resin, me, and then Brad Gilderman. And I remember when we first started doing the Idol stuff with season 6, and it was just me and Brad at that point. We hadn't brought Jonathan on board at this point. And Brad said, "All right, dude, we don't have a budget to do this. So you've got to go with me to the soundstage, and we've got to figure out how we're going to record these contestants, around their schedule." So, dude, we literally would be up on the CBS soundstage in the dressing room. There would be like, the mirrors with the light bulbs around them, and they're doing their makeup and all that stuff. And Brad and I had wardrobe racks that were extended, and then we had rugs draped over them, right? And so we put wardrobe racks like this, and then like this. We made like a U-shaped thing, and we draped these rugs over it. We put a little bitty Pro Tools, like a mobile Pro Tools recording studio, right in this little section. And so they would come out of their booths doing their makeup, rehearsing for the live show and stuff, and they would come into the booth, and we would literally record their vocals right there in the dressing room. That was the first, I don't know, few months of doing it. But yeah, that was a cool experience. It was a lot of fun.
Now, you went on to record the ringtones too, didn't you?
Yeah.
Now, how was that process?
That was stressful. Even to this day, anytime I hear that American Idol, they call it bumper music. Like whenever you return from the commercial, it's like that that thing. It stresses me out every time I hear it, because I would have 2 Pro Tools rigs set up outside the studio in a trailer, and so I had a system here and then a backup system here, and so I would record the rehearsals, and then each contestant would get 1 shot, sometimes 2 during rehearsals. And so I would capture the live rehearsals. But then whenever the show went live on the East Coast, which would be like 6 o'clock, or no, it would be about 4 or 5 o'clock LA time. And so they would go live on the East Coast, and then I would capture the ringtones from that, but from the live show. And so what would happen is, in between the commercials, I would have to take those tracks and condense them, clip them up, fade the ends, put some compression and mixing. I'd mix them real quick, and then I would have to set them aside. So I literally had about 2 to 3 minutes to get that all together before the next contestant was coming up. So every time I hear that bumper music coming back on American Idol, it stresses me out. and not to mention, dude, I would have a room full of people from the management company at 19 Management sitting in the room. It wasn't uncommon to have, 6 or 8, 10 people on the couch behind me watching me do this stuff. So I was always stressed out, because if you mess up, the only way that you have to dig yourself out of that is to go back to the rehearsal, and if the computers could, several times I lost the computer, so I had to use my backup. Sometimes I would have to go back to the rehearsal that they did earlier in the day because their live performance stunk, So it was pretty cool. I like doing it, but that part of it was stressful. I like working with the contestants more than anything.
Now, did you there was one experience you had out there in the. Did some of the judges and stuff come out there where you were recording it and stuff?
Yeah, they I mean, we weren't like palling around buddy, but oftentimes I'd go have a smoke or something, and Simon Cowell, he would go on the other side of the outside over there, and I was on the opposite side. But every once in a while, I'd walk around there and hang out and talk to him, and they were all real nice, man. Randy Jackson's super nice. Paul Abdul was nice. They were all nice people.
Now, you worked that for like 4 seasons, wasn't it?
Yeah, 6 through 9.
So, Baby Ice wants to know, do you have any favorites, people you worked with, idol singers?
Oh man, I liked Lee DeWise. I like David Cook a lot. He was great. I mean, Adam Lambert was great. Chris Allen was good. There was a couple of I can't remember their names. A couple of the female singers I really liked. On that show, I got most of the country and the rock people. So the way that would happen was on like Mondays, they would bring in these contestants in batches of 3. And so we had a Westlake studio blocked out. So Brad was in his studio, I had my room, and then Jonathan had his room. And so what would happen is, as the season would progress, the rock and the country people would gravitate towards me. But and Jonathan did more R&B stuff, and then Brad was kind of he could do anything. But so they would bring them in batches of 3, but most of the country and rock people would gravitate towards me. So I forgot what your question was, but that
Just
was
favorite people. Well,
Yeah.
did you ever think about who you thought was going to win and think somebody should have and they didn't?
No, I mean, not really. I mean, you get to know these kids, and most of them are nice. Some of them are, some of them are like Richie and I were back in the day. They didn't have a clue either, and they kind of get lost in the shuffle and make bad decisions. And so, no, I mean, for the most part, David Cook was cool. Lee DeWise. You get to meet a bunch of I met what's his name? Oh, jeez, the coolest cat. Harry Connick Jr. Probably one of the nicest dudes I ever met. He came in, and so oftentimes I would get to meet those people that would come in and mentor them. So that was cool. But as far as like any of my favorites, yeah, I like most of the rock guys, like Lee DeWise, David Cook, people like that.
Now, what was my other? Rich, what did you do after Sister Whiskey?
What did I do after Sister Whiskey?
He started populating what he did. He started populating the world.
That's true. I do have many children. I went back to school and learned how to do video editing and motion graphics and got into that world. So since then, I work in post-production. Sometimes I work in animation, sometimes I work in marketing. Just worked up in Apple during the developers conference when they unveiled the Apple Vision. I was part of the team that worked on the videos that were released for that. So that's what I do. Basically, I work in post-production as an editor, sometimes a graphic artist.
Yeah, but Rich, tell them some of the movie stuff that you worked on, some of the trailers. Like, didn't you do Spider-Man and stuff like that?
Like I worked on a lot of the mainly TV campaigns for all Hollywood movies. It's really not that glamorous because it's like sometimes you get to rub elbows with some cool people, but mainly it's like a bunch of very frustrated people in a dark room cutting TV spots for not so great movies, I mean, it's not as glamorous as it sounds, but it's Hollywood movies most of the time, or TV shows, and you get an assignment, you make a spot, and you hope that they prove it so that you can get on to the next one. Or I was working during COVID times. I was working in animation, so I was working on some shows for Fox and Disney and a bunch of different studios. So yeah, I mean that's what I've been up to since. And I still play. I still play in cover bands. I don't think I could ever give it up. If we're talking about Sister Whiskey, basically I still play. I have a band. We play cover tunes and we play once a month, and I get out my frustrations on the stage still.
So did they make you sign non-disclosures when you work on them unreleased stuff?
Yeah, we do. We when you go to work somewhere, they make you sign an NDA. So, it's sometimes you see sometimes you work off of dailies. You have to create these trailers and TV spots based on based on dailies. So you see some of the footage that they're shooting before they make the movie. So you're seeing raw footage, and you get to see stuff that the normal person doesn't see. But other than that, it's really once in a while we go to premieres, and once in a while we rub elbows with somebody famous. But that that really doesn't mean anything to me. I mean, I just want to work, and it's just a job in the end. There's nothing fancy about it. It's just a job. I've been doing it a while since Sister Whiskey ended in 93.
90, yeah, like early 94.
Really?
Yeah.
No, it couldn't have been.
93.
It must have been 93.
Yeah.
But anyway, since then, like I lived through the LA, and I lived through LA riots, and I lived through Rodney King and all this stuff, and I'm still here.
You ever thought about getting out of LA?
Yeah, all the time.
Every day.
It's
Yeah,
the
all
few
the
times
time.
I've been there, it was crazy.
I mean, it's like anywhere else. It is what you make of it.
And Dennis, Baby Ice wants to know if you could hook her up with Adam Lambert to get some pictures or something.
I haven't talked to those guys in years. I mean, pretty much after those shows. Huh? What are you saying,
Did you see that documentary about him and Queen?
No.
There's a pretty good documentary about Adam Lambert and Queen. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
One thing I always said, if you don't win American Idol, you're probably going to have a better chance of being successful than this your Kelly Clarkson.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I haven't talked to any of those guys since they got off the show. I mean, they move on. They're doing their thing.
Okay. Well, I guess if y'all don't have anything else you want to talk about.
No, I think Richie and I were always buds, man. Even back in the day, and we've always just remained friends. And maybe we'll do another one at some point, and maybe get Ange and Joey and maybe Vance. I mean, Jack.
Is there ever going to be a re-release?
No.
No,
we
I always remember, like, we had such a good time. There was like a sweet spot, when we first got together, and it was a really great time. And things did go sour, but I don't know. You can remember that, or you can remember the stuff that was good. I like to remember all the good stuff that we did. We would have all the holidays together, and nobody had any money, but we seemed to eat and we seemed to like have fun, and there was always a party at somebody's apartment. And one point we met up with Steven Adler from Guns N' Roses, and he came to our apartment, and he told us stories about how Guns N' Roses used to live in the same building and how all the shenanigans they did, and this happened over here and that happened over there, and then you start to realize how small the whole community is, and it's there was a lot of good. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of good, and those are the stuff I remember.
Yeah, that was a good time, man.
Now, speaking of Guns N' Roses, Dennis, I remember you had a YouTube campaign one time to audition for a lead singer vocals for a popular band. Can you
Yep.
tell us a little bit about that?
Which one?
Well, either or. I don't know. I know you.
Yeah, I was up for that
Camp-
Velvet Revolver thing back in, before it was Velvet Revolver. Let's see, in 2004 maybe. And
Yeah, I think it was.
I wrote 6 songs with them. They sent me the 2 tracks, and then I had a little recording studio at my house and wrote 3 with them.
That was with McDuff and Slash, right?
Yeah. And then I flew out, auditioned, and then they offered me the gig. They sent me home with 3 more songs. I recorded those, sent them back to them. They said they loved them. They said, when can you get back out here? I said, whenever you want me to come. He said, well, start packing, get ready, start packing your stuff. And a couple of days later, I'll never forget this, dude. It's right after I was going through a divorce with my first and only wife. And I was playing with my band at the time, and we had come off the road. And whenever I got back, my ex-wife had left, and she had taken everything. And so everything from my house was gone. She left me a TV, a love seat, and my clothes and my recording gear in the basement. And I remember sitting on the floor in my bedroom watching MTV News and seeing Duff coming out of the courthouse with Scott Weiland. And I said, I bet they get Scott Weiland instead of me. And I never heard from him again after that. It was the weirdest thing. And then I did, whenever Stone Temple Pilots was looking for a singer, I did some stuff and sent into that. They didn't contact me, but then I was like, you know what? Let me reach out to their management company, because they're the same people that manage Velvet Revolver. And I said, I think I could say, at least they'll know that I'm not pulling their leg. And if I say, hey, I rehearsed over here with these guys at their studio, and if I said all the right keywords, then it might get their attention, And so sure enough, they called me back that same day, and they're like, yeah, I guess you got lost in the shuffle. We'll resend your stuff. And they listened to it and said, yeah, we want you to come fly out and audition. I was like, okay, great. And they're like, can you be here and, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, cool, no problem. Went out, played with them. It was, I didn't have the greatest audition. There was a couple songs that one of them was this song called Meat Plow. It's really hard to sing. For me, it is. But I would give, as far as a grade for that audition, I'd probably give myself a, B+, And I think they were just looking for something a little bit different, maybe someone with a little bit more notoriety. But it came down to me and the guy that they got. It was down to me and the dude that I think he was runner-up for X Factor or something, maybe. And
yeah, I think I remember that.
Yeah, Jeff something, and I don't know him or anything, but it was down to me and him. And I hung out in L.A. for a couple weeks. I think we all hung out. Me, you, and Joey hung out then, didn't we, Richie? And then, yeah, it was 2 weeks of pins and needles. And the guitar player called me. He's like, hey, dude, look, I think we're going to go with this other guy. I was like, man, twice in a row, but not in a row, but
yeah,
just so many close calls there, but just wasn't meant to be. It was a great experience, fun. I didn't mess anything up. I wasn't the guy for it, That's it.
Yep, I thought that was pretty neat that Scott Walling got the other job and you were auditioning for his lead singer job.
Yeah, it was pretty wild, right? I'll tell you what. One thing that was cool about that though is if you guys have watched that documentary called Sound City about the Foo Fighters, where they talk about the recording console from Sound City, I believe Dave Grohl bought that and he moved it into his studio. But the studio that I auditioned with the STP at was Dave Grohl's studio over in I want to say it's way out in the valley, way deep out there, like Chatsworth area. But yeah, I got to go into that studio, and it was a very, very cool studio. But yeah, it was a good time.
All right. Well, I think that's about it for tonight. I'd like to thank everybody for stopping by and watching. Thank Dennis and Rich for coming on and commemorating the 30th anniversary. I think that's pretty neat and a lot of cool stories. And now I got to find the next group to put on the second episode. I got a few people in mind, but I'd like to just thank everybody, and I'll have all the information in the description, and I hope everybody liked all the stories.
Yeah.
And I'll see everybody next time.
All right. See you, Benny.
Thanks, man.